Welcome back to the Speed of Trust Book Study Podcast. I'm MASSP's Executive Director, Wendy Zadeb. In this next section of the book, You Can Do Something About This. Covey reminds us that trust isn't out of our control, it starts with ourselves. He argues that the first step in building trust with others is developing what he calls self-trust, confidence rooted in both character and competence. To explore this, I'm joined by Christian Manley, principal at the Battle Creek STEM and Innovation Center. Christian has spent 18 years in education, first in an elementary classroom and now leading innovation work at the secondary level. She's passionate about empowering teachers to take ownership of their classrooms and creating a culture where trust enables real growth and change. Well, I'm excited to be meeting this morning with Mrs. Christian Manley, who is currently the principal at the Battle Creek STEM Innovation Center in Battle Creek Public Schools. So, Christian, would you give us the rundown on your history of your career? So, kind of
Yeah.
like where did you go to college and go from there?
So I am from Kalamazoo, Michigan, and so I graduated from Kalamazoo Central and went to Western Michigan University. I have all of my degrees are from Western. Apparently, I won't go to any other school. I have my bachelor's in education, and then I have my master's in the practice of teaching and curriculum instruction in urban education. And then I have my ed specialist in educational leadership.
Awesome.
So
Well, I went to
I am
Western
current.
also. Woo!
Yay, go Broncos. I am entering my 18th year in education. I started out as an elementary teacher. So I taught kindergarten, I taught third grade, I taught fourth grade, and I taught fifth grade.
Wow.
And so I enjoyed my elementary years, but I really loved fifth grade. So I think it was when I taught fifth grade that I was like, I could do middle school because I liked the age. And so after teaching, in Kalamazoo, I started in Kalamazoo. And then after teaching, I did some consulting for a company for 2 years, but it was in support of Battle Creek Public Schools. And so I was here in a consultant role. And then after that, I joined the Battle Creek team, and I've been here ever since.
Awesome. Well, great.
Yep.
So excited to have you with us today. So how many
Yeah.
years is that total for you in public education?
18.
18.
18.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, love hearing that story. Love knowing that there's, people that are out there in their 18th year and still going strong. So thanks so much for joining us today. So, this is a pretty meaty book that we're reading, which is Stephen Covey's The Speed of Trust. And today we are covering You Can Do Something About This, which is pages 27 through 41. So before we kind of like delve into the meat of the book, you're working in a pretty exciting place, I would imagine, at the Innovation Center. So before
Yes.
we kind of jump into the book discussion, can you just tell me like a proud principal moment that you have about your school?
Actually, I've had many, but I actually was able to have one just yesterday. There was a golf benefit for our school, and I was able to take two of my students to kind of kick off the golf tournament that they were having. And I had two young men there, and just to hear them talk and represent our school well just made me a very proud principal in that moment.
Oh, that's great. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that they were great representatives, and sometimes it's affirmation,
Yes.
of the great
Yes.
work you're doing to actually hear them
Yep.
say the things that you're hoping that they're getting. So that's
Yep.
awesome. All right. So before we get going here, let's just think a little bit about, this book in general and talking about speed of trust. And, you know, I think one thing that is pointed out to me is even though I feel like I'm a person that establishes trust, it does definitely make me also realize that, I've got some work to do and there's definitely things that I could do to kind of, further myself and improve. In this section, Covey starts talking about, his father and how when he was a child, he gave him the task of keeping the lawn clean and green. And basically didn't give him a lot of, didn't say you have to do it this way, you have to do it on this time. And he just said, that's the expectation. This is how we want it to look. And however you go about it, that's your job. And he explained also the definition of stewardship. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of think stewardship is like a little bit of an old school term. But when
Mm-hmm.
I really think about it, I think it's so applicable to education too. So when he defined stewardship, Covey said, now you need to know that when you take this job, I don't do it anymore. It's your job. It's called stewardship. And stewardship means a job with trust. I trust you to do the job, to get it done. And then he set up an accountability system and said he'd be available for help. So as
Mm-hmm.
you read that and think about that, could you think of a situation in your own childhood that maybe was similar?
It was interesting. That part was very interesting to me. I couldn't think of one in my childhood, but I actually thought of one that I had recently in the last couple of years with my daughter. Um, in the Black community, hair is a big thing, and growing up, parents tend to take really good care of their baby's hair. And when I got this job as a principal, and she's going to middle school, I'm gone before she even wakes up. And so I kind of had a panic moment, like, oh my gosh. I had a sister growing up, so my sister helped me. She's the only girl. So I was like, I've got to set her up to know, like, you've got to do this. I can't help you anymore. And so
Right.
I did. I kind of passed the torch to her one summer. I was like, hey, you got to figure out how to get your hair done because I'm not going to be there in the morning. So it's up to you. You have to do it. And I told her, I was like, I will help you when I can. I said, but you got to figure out how to do a ponytail first. She just kind of looked at me. She was like, what? I said, figure the ponytail out and the rest will come. And so it was like every morning I get these text messages while I'm at work. Mom, I'm like, I can't help you. Did you try this? And so it was kind of like I didn't have a choice to like relinquish the reins, but I had to figure out a way to help her know, like, you can do this and you have to do this. I can't help you anymore. And she does her hair just fine now. Nowadays, I don't even know what her routine is, but it was one of those situations where I really had to be like, you got to figure it out. I'm here to help you when I can, but you've got to figure it out.
And I think that that's such a good one because it is such a challenge, like kind of doing that release, especially in your
Mm-hmm.
role and just knowing what your limitations are,
Yep.
but still wanting her to go to school,
Yeah.
representing the family and looking good
Yeah.
every day, right?
Absolutely.
So, how do you think principals could kind of use this concept of stewardship in their role as, administrators when you're onboarding new staff and you're trying to kind of help them to understand the culture and the expectations? It seems to me like stewardship's a little bit of a natural, fit with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, how do you think that's something that you might be able to kind of integrate into how you work with teachers?
Yeah, it it makes me think of kind of when you said the word expectations. When you fall under any leadership, there's always a level of expectation that's upon you. But working with people, you also have to realize everyone's different. No one, we're not working with robots where we say you have to do it this way and that's how you'll get it done. Everyone has their own style. And so I think that's kind of where the stewardship comes in. It's like, these are the guardrails. This is what I need you to do. And you need to figure out how to get it done. And if you need support, we're here to support you to get it done. But I can't do it for you. Like, I can't
Yeah.
set up your classroom management system because then I'm the one they're listening to. You have to set up your classroom management system. And then if you need support, then we can help you. So it's kind of the idea around, like, especially when I talk about my support team, we cannot manage your class from the outside in. It has to be managed from the inside out. And so you have to do the work in the classroom and we can support you when needed. And so it's that trust factor of like, you can do this and you have to do this I mean, no one else can do it for you, but then we're here to support you.
One of the things that struck me when I was reading that, but also going back to my days as a classroom teacher, I realized pretty quickly that when I was a new teacher, that the students that I was teaching, they would come running in the room. It was like chaotic. I mean, and I realized I actually had to teach them how to enter the room properly. And
Yes.
that might seem like kind of really you have to do, but that's what I
Yeah.
so the next day, I stood outside my door, kept everybody in the hall, said, this is how you enter the room. You look up at the board, you see what we're doing, you get your supplies, you sit down, like that basic, but
Yeah.
taking the time to set the expectation, talk about how this needed to be. Like that, it just alleviated this problem. And I think about that, with this new teacher, idea that maybe we have expectations that they're going to come in and know how to manage their classroom and know how to talk to
Mhm.
students, know how to talk to parents, etc., in the way that we think might be common sense.
Right.
What I've really come to understand in my many years now is that if common sense was so common, everyone would have it. And that just because somebody even has common sense, that doesn't necessarily that means that they have common understanding, of
Correct.
what we want that to look like.
Yeah.
So when you think about that stewardship of the classroom, how can you or do you help teachers to be able to see like a good example of what that looks
Mhm.
like? Do you
Yeah.
is there something that you do to kind of ensure that?
I am a big proponent of the teachers working together. I'm
Yes.
their answers are usually right here in the building with your colleagues. And everybody's not perfect at everything, but everybody's good at something. And
Yes.
so it's finding the strength in the building and, encouraging them to ask their colleagues if they would like some support. Don't take over their class, but a lot of my teachers are great. They are very receptive to support. They support one another. And so if and but there's also those quiet ones, right? And so who are still receptive, they're just not as out there as the others. So I would say, hey, have you tried talking to Miss Bates? She's really good at getting the kids to come in the door. You should probably ask her, see if she has some ideas for you. And they usually do, but just
Right.
pointing them to each other because um, what I found is when I tell them what
Right.
to do, it feels very different for them, even though it's not my intent for it to feel the way they receive it. It's just the nature of my role. And
Right.
so we have a coach or, your teammates, turn to your team first because the answers are here. We've
Yes.
got a lot going on here and everyone's willing to support. And
Yeah.
so I try to point my team to each other.
So true. So true. I think being able to, draw them to the teachers that really are that exemplar of the stewardship and, what you love seeing, happening in the building is a really great idea. And it's a good way to also, for when they approach that person and say, Christian t told me that,
Hmm.
you're the kind of person that I'd want to have a conversation with about this. I think it gives you dual purpose then also because that person probably feels pretty good that that you recommended them. So that's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So do you think that, today's teachers just have this sense of stewardship? Do you feel like it's present in your current teaching staff? And what do you think it does, it takes to help teachers develop kind of that intrinsic level of self-accountability for stewardship? Because, you know, just like Stephen Covey, had to take that on intrinsically, and say, this is a level that I want to have this looking.
Yeah.
How do we get teachers to kind of have that same, level of duty, so to speak?
So that question is very interesting because I would say now, yes, I have teachers, not all my teachers, but I do have teachers on my staff that have stewardship. But when I started here, I would say no. But when I started here, every teacher, I'm a small school in the east wing of our high school, so I have 170 students. I have 8 classroom teachers. Every teacher was brand new. No teacher was returning to the building or even from our district. And so when you have new people coming together, they don't know the systems of the district, they don't know each other. It's really hard. It was really hard to create a level of like teachers that are willing to step forward and do things when they're trying to learn the people around them, the district, the curriculum. They're not even from Michigan. It felt like I held a lot of trying to pull that out of people. But what I found is over the years, as teachers return, which I know is a big thing in education since COVID, teachers leaving, teachers coming, people having unstable staffs and turnover. Turnover is a huge hit to creating culture and stewardship. And in order to have stewardship, you have to have culture. You have to have a culture of people who, I've been here, I know how things have run, even if things need to change. They hold history, they know each other. And I feel like we've gotten to that place here where when they feel that level of comfort and culture, then they're like, I want to do this. I want to do this. Then they're just stepping out and they want to take over everything, which is, I love it because they feel confident and comfortable enough to say, like, hey, I really feel like I can impact this thing here by doing this. Whereas before, we really never had that. And I had to hold a lot of that. And it was a lot of work. And now I feel like we have a team who are
Ah,
willing to step up and do the things.
that's awesome. And I totally agree with everything that you just said and can like picture, how that kind of comes to fruition. It certainly isn't something that happens overnight though.
No,
It takes
not at all.
so, all right, we get people to have that level of stewardship. They are taking some ownership, they're doing the things, but how do we really get it to a level of excellence? I think
Yeah.
that's where the leadership aspect comes in. Um, any thoughts about that? Because when Stephen, talks about clean and green, it wasn't just cut the grass, it was, at this level, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think one of the parts in the book was the trusting yourself. Because, if I trust myself enough to know, like, I have a great staff, they can do this work. I believe that they can do this work. I don't have to micromanage people. And then that means that I'm trusting them. I'm saying, this is what I would like. And we kind of did this yesterday at professional development. Hey, this is the instructional expectation of this year. So you're going to sit down in a group, you're going to go through this, and you're going to illustrate what this means for us because I trust that you understand this. And it might cause some angst, but then we're going to talk through it. And so I think it's just setting that bar high, but then not doubting. Kind of the point he got to in the book was like, high trust equals low costs. And so, in low trust equals high cost. Like, if I don't trust that you're doing it, it's going to take us forever to do it. And then I'm going to feel like I need to be in every little piece of every little thing. But if I trust it's going to get done, then I feel like we're going to get there quicker. And so, I really think it's about setting the expectation, setting the bar, but then really understanding that I have a staff of people. I trust who I am leading them, and I trust who they are, and we're going to get this done. So, I,
Would you wonder a little bit, like, we're talking using the word trust
yeah,
frequently, but like, is that a word that you literally say to them? Because I do feel like that's an important point. Like, it's not something I don't think I've explicitly said.
yeah,
I mean, obviously, when you're, asking employees to do something and giving them time and things, but to actually say to them, I trust your level of competence. I trust your level of training. I know how dedicated you are to our kids, and I trust that you're going to be able to do this. Like that's something that was a key takeaway
yeah.
for me.
Well, I said it yesterday because I'm reading this book. I did. I was like, you know
Yeah.
what? I'm not going to tell you how to get it done. I'm going to give you
Mhm.
30 minutes, and these are the things. And I trust that you can get it done. We'll just come together in 30 minutes, and they did. They did it perfectly.
Yes. And I think that is just like a big learning point,
Yep.
is that that's kind of a key takeaway. So where do
Yep.
you feel that you have the most influence over trust building in your school? Because you talked about bringing these people together from different backgrounds, and part of building that culture is building that trust. Where do you have the most influence over that?
So one of our big lifts has been, because I've done a little bit of reimagining our STEM program in the last 3 years, and has been project-based learning. And one of the areas I feel like I've built a lot of trust is failing forward. In this reimagining of a program, things are going to go wrong. We're doing this as we're going. And so we're going to have a lot of ups and downs. And I've worked really hard for my staff to know and understand that it's okay when we mess up, as long as we get back up. Like, we're going to mess some stuff up. But we got to keep going. Like, we can't mess up and then stop. As long as we know, like, it's a forward movement, we're good. And so I feel like when it comes to our programmatic design, teachers and their like teachers tend to shy away from voicing that they want to try something new because there's this fear like if I say I want to do it and then I do it and mess up, then you're going to hold me accountable for this thing and then I'm going to get in trouble. It's going to affect my evaluation. I don't, that's not something we do here. Like, I would rather you try something and fail than not try it at all and continue to do something that doesn't work. And so I feel like I've built a culture where I have teachers that go, hey, I want to try this thing. Is that okay? And I'm always like, absolutely, try it. Let me know if it works. Let me know if it fails. Let me know if you want me to come see it. And so most of my teachers will do that. Like, we're trying something new this week. I just want you to let you know that it's going to look a little different. And so I think that's an area in which I built trust with my team.
Oh, that's perfect. That's stellar example right there. So one point that's made continuously in the book is the correlation between character and competence. When you think of a teacher on your staff who models both of these at high levels, what does that look like and how does it impact the level of instruction that they provide?
Mhm. For me, a teacher with high character is one that you can sense and you hear through their words and their actions. They want to see our students successful. They want to see our students win. And they just their drive as an educator is to ensure students are successful, and they have a high level of understanding of their own content. Like, they know the ins and outs of this seventh grade math. This is what students need to learn, and this is the order in which they need to learn it, and these are the prerequisites to each of these skills. And so when a teacher has character and competence, I think there's a drive to see students successful, but they also design lessons in a way that they know will address all learners. So they have a plan for if a student doesn't get it, if a student doesn't have this skill, and then they're assessing. They're constantly assessing because they know where their students are and they know where they need to go. And they tend to stress themselves out a little bit. Whereas you have to look and be like, okay, we'll get there because they're so driven by the success of their students. To me, that's what characterizes the teacher with high character and competence. And it's when you get those teachers, it's so refreshing because it's almost like you don't have to tell them to push hard. You almost have to slow them down sometimes. Like, it's okay, we got this. And I do have a couple. I can name two teachers right now who I have to look at and like, okay, yep, and the data proves it. But don't kill yourself. Let's like take a breath because you're gonna get there.
Yeah. And I think it comes out in the way that you described it is also that they truly care about their students. And that's part of just being, high compassion, high
Mm-hmm.
care, that they have that part of their stewardship of their
Yeah.
classroom,
Yep.
like that's all part of that correlation. So on pages 32 through 36, Covey outlines the five waves of trust: self-trust, relationship trust, organizational trust, market trust, and societal trust. And you already kind of referred to that self-trust. Which
Yep.
one of these aspects of trust interests you the most? And is there an area of strength for you currently, or one that you might develop further after reading?
The self trust was the one that stood out to me. Um, because it was almost like, like if you don't trust yourself in any of the work you do, you're not, it's not gonna, you can't build trust amongst your staff in between yourself and your staff. And I'm still kind of thinking about that. Like, there's a lot of, as a leader, there's so many decisions you have to make all the time. And you're gonna make the wrong decision sometimes. And so and you can't always ask someone, like, there's moments where you don't have the time to reach out and get somebody's input on what you should do, and those are moments in which you have to trust yourself. And those are, I think that's what stood out to me. Like, I've never thought about it like that. Like, there, you just have to trust yourself as a leader. Like, you're in this role for a purpose. People see things in you. You saw things in yourself and you wanted to do this job. So to a degree you have to trust that you can do this work. And so that was the area I think that stood out to me. And I feel like an area I want to work on because I never correlated it like that. it's just very interesting to me.
I similar experience with that section because sometimes you might think to yourself, I'm going to get up on Saturday and I'm going to walk, or I'm going to ride my bike, or exercise is always to me one of the things that I'm always like
Yep.
gaming out during my day. But if you don't do it, you're like, oh well. But what the book really says is if you're going to build trust within yourself, you have to show up for yourself.
Yep.
And if you, set goals, and you're gonna don't, and then he used that example of setting up, I think he said that he was going to only drink water every day for a year was one of the examples.
Oh my God.
I was like, I mean, I'm a huge water drinker,
I
but I
do
don't want to just drink water. But because he said it, he held himself to it.
Yeah.
And like that was, I thought was,
Yeah.
he's a lot of like interesting kind of extreme examples.
Yeah. Very
Personal
extreme.
extreme.
But what you said about like the showing up for yourself, it was interesting. Apparently, this I've been thinking about this book more than I know because yesterday I was like, I'm gonna wake up. I have a treadmill, and I have weights. But yesterday I was like, I wanted to go to the gym because I have a gym membership. I just was like, I just want to do my strength training at the gym. And I woke up and I started, going through my head about like, oh, maybe I'll just. And I was like, nope, I'm gonna show up for myself. And I was like, oh. And then I got up. But it was like the idea of like you gotta show up for. It's so true. Like if you don't show up for yourself first,
Right.
but no
Yes.
one. We don't think about that. We think about showing up for others.
Yes. Yes. And like our trust is that we
Hmm.
keep our word to other people,
Yep.
and we keep our word to other people better than we
Yep.
do, to
Yep.
ourselves. And that's why I think a lot of like using the fitness example is so many people do better when they have a buddy, because
Correct.
if I'm going to meet you at 8 a.m. every day, I'm not going to not show up. But if I'm only doing
Correct.
it for myself at 8 a.m., maybe not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I thought that was a really good point, and I agree with you. I know that's creeped into my head already on several occasions when I wanted to like let myself not do something. All right, so on page 39, Covey states, the purpose of this book is to enable you to see, speak, and behave in ways that establish trust, and all three dimensions are vital. When you reflect on your work as a principal, how do you see this come into play? And how are you cognizant of building trust in this manner?
So I never thought about it this way when I read this part, the see, speak, and behave. And when I was thinking about this, I was like seeing. It was almost like seeing the system. It was that high cost, low speed, and then low cost, high speed. Is To me, it's seeing that. Like if you see that something is taking forever to get done, then it probably there's low trust there in this situation and people are not understanding. And that to me is probably one of the big things that I'm going to hold on to this year is seeing the system high cost, low speed, low cost, high speed. Um, but then speaking it is just to me was like naming the issues. Like when he talked about and when the merge happened in his company, his dad was no longer there, and it was like you just got this job because you're his son. And he actually showed up and just named the issue, and people were like, "Oh, I think that brings some level of trust too for people to know, like, oh, you actually know what's wrong. Like, you're not afraid to address the issue. In itself, just builds a level of trust. And so, I think naming the issue also in a way that people can hear it, that we can get over whatever the barrier is to do the work that we need to do. And then behavior to me is the actions. Like, do your actions line up with what you say and what we say we're about and what we say we're doing and how you say you trust me and want to see me perform? I think it shows up in how we act as leaders.
So true. So true. And probably more so in how we act
Mm-hmm.
than what we say,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Yep.
I think that's definitely one of kind of those key takeaways. Well, we've talked a little bit throughout this time about since you started your journey on reading this book, how it's impacted your thinking and kind of your behaviors even. Have you made any intentional changes in your relationships to increase trust at this point?
So Our staff literally came back on Tuesday. So, but one of the things I am carrying with me is the high cost, low speed, low cost, high speed. I think that is that see, speak, behave, like allow me to see like what's working, and then if it's not, if it's going slow, then maybe that I need to see what issues or where the trust is breaking down,
Mm.
so that we can do the work.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Okay. So if you were to talk about this with other principals or assistant principals, and they could only get one key takeaway from this chapter, what should it be?
high cost, low speed, low cost, high speed.
And really understanding that if we make that investment in trust and the
Yes,
trust is there, things can move more quickly,
yes.
have a natural inclination to understand like what
Mm-hmm.
your motives are, where you're coming from.
Yes.
This is going to be good for me and it's going to be good for the kids. And so I'm going to do it. And
Yep.
if we aren't getting that reaction, it
Then
gets
why?
rooted more deeply into the
Yeah.
trust issue or like
Yep.
the transparency. I mean, all the elements of trust.
Yes.
That,
It seems like that to me is when things like in the district, sometimes things just take forever. And sometimes it's amongst the leadership and central office. It's like if it's taking so long, then the trust is not there.
Mhm,
Right. And so what needs to be named and so we can move. I
mhm.
think that was super big for me. I even read it to my husband. I was like, listen to this. Because they hit me hard. I was like, oh my God. And they gave examples of like when the CEO of this company and they just made the agreement, it was done in 2 months, whereas it could have taken a year. And I was like, man, that makes
Yes.
total sense.
And I've thought about that so like in so many different applications. Like,
Mhm.
why is it that when I work with this group of people, this can happen so quickly, but when I try
Yep.
to, approach a different partner, it just roadblock
Yeah.
after roadblock, and I think it is that level of trust. But also the other thing I've been going back to a lot too, is it's also competency because,
Mm.
you know, they may not have the competency to do
True.
like what
True.
you want to do. And so and you can know, they gave examples of someone can be extremely trustworthy, but
Yes.
they just
Yes.
don't have the competence to get
Yep.
something done. So
Yep.
I think that's another thing is it's always going back to that other element. And,
Yep.
whether we're talking about new teachers or we're
Yep.
talking about, children, making sure that your daughter has the competence, right, to
Yep.
be able
Yep.
to do her hair and be
Yep.
successful with it. So I
Yep.
mean, it's really thought-provoking stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I really
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about it today and to take on this book. And I plan on recording obviously throughout the whole of the book with other
Yeah.
principals as well. And so you can join in and listen in and keep kind of
Absolutely.
these really great thoughts and impacting your own leadership and your personal life as well.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity, and the book is good.
Well, thanks for joining me. It was great to be able to speak with you this morning and looking forward to continuing the podcast. So have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
That brings us to the close of episode 2 and our discussion on you can do something about this. In episode 3, we'll move into the first wave of self-trust, which is pages 42 to 60. My guest will be Josh Wrinkle, the principal at Rochester High School, who will share how credibility shapes his work with students, staff, and parents. Be sure to read pages 42 through 60 before tuning in. Covey's test on credibility is especially thought provoking in this section, and we'll dig into that together. And as always, keep leading with trust.